In our B example here, graphing y equals 1/2 times the absolute value of x minus 5 plus 2. Again, 3 different transformations here. Let's break down first and see what our transformations are doing. So this 1/2 does something, our minus 5, and the plus 2. Each of those is a transformation in some way. This 1/2 is on the outside. That means it's going to affect our graph vertically. And since it's 1/2 times something else, it's a vertical shrink or compression. And I'll use both words, shrink and compression, interchangeably. This minus 5 is on the inside. Inside affects our graph horizontally, left and right. And that's the opposite of what we think. So this minus 5 is really going to go right 5. And then the plus 2 here, it's outside, which affects our graph vertically and does what we think. Plus 2 goes up 2. Let's make our table for our parent function. And keep those same x values. -2, -1, 0, 1, 2. Absolute value of each of them. And then we follow our order of operations. So even though we usually think of our order of operations as parentheses, remember that it's really grouping symbols. This absolute value still acts as a grouping symbol. So we would do our right 5 transformation first, which affects our x values. And if we're going to go to the right, our x values should get bigger. We need to add 5 to each x value. Then order of operations, we have parentheses, exponents, multiplying and dividing. Our vertical shrink is up next. That affects our y values. And multiply each y value by 1/2. And finally, our translation up 2, where we add 2 to each y value. Okay, now this 1/2 here, I'm not going to do this very often, but for the purposes of graphing, it's okay to leave it as 2.5 as a mixed number. Really don't like that for reasons that we'll see and I'll explain later on. But for graphing purposes, it's easy for us to think about what 2.5 is. Here's my x, my y values that I want to graph. So I have 3, 3, 4, 2.5, 5, 2, 6, 2.5, 7, 3. And don't forget as you connect the dots to double check and make sure that you're following, that you're connecting the dots in the shape that they should be. Absolute value, we should have a V shape, we should have a point. Okay. There we go.